Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Who's Your Band? I am Jeffrey Paul. I am finally back after a couple of week absence of doing the show from my car and traveling. Actually able to do this in my own podcast studio, and I am joined by my co-host, Mr. Sean Morton. How are you, Sean?
Oh, Jeffrey, I get to see your smiling face and hear your voice loud and clear. What else could I ask for in this world?
You do get to do that. I want to bring in our guest right away because we have been trying to get this woman on our show for the last couple of weeks, and she's really got an interesting background and an interesting story. So I really want to, I'm really excited to be talking to her. She's a model, she's an actress, she's an author, and I heard through the rumor mill that she may be into the fudge business. I'm not sure about this.
No.
But we'll find out. Let's please introduce Miss Carrie Stevens. How are you, Carrie?
Hi, I'm doing okay. How are you doing? I did watch your episode with Bloss where you were broadcasting from the car. It was quite entertaining. So good job. I don't know how you pulled that off.
He's a great guy.
I love Bloss. I have known Bloss. Well, I guess. When Slaughter was recording, an old roommate of mine was dating Mark, and the whole band was staying with Dana and Bloss. So I was friends with all their girlfriends and wives. Bloss actually gave me their demo tape, and I gave it to Eric Carr. Eric gave it to Gene Simmons, and that's how Slaughter got on the Hot in the Shade tour.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was one of the questions I wanted to ask you because Bloss had brought, you mentioned the last episode, he brought that up, and you had a hand in getting Slaughter signed to a label. Nice of them.
I'm always hearing he and Mark giving me that credit. So of course I don't, it goes full circle, which is really interesting because it's actually thanks to them inadvertently that I became a playmate because Dana's then wife, Peggy, was in Playboy, and she's the one years later I contacted to say, hey, do you think I could be a playmate? And so she's the one that got me in Playboy. So they helped my career. I'm not in a strange, everything comes around, very strange.
Yeah. We'll get to Playboy in a second, but I want to really get to know you a little bit. And first off, where did you grow up, Carrie?
In Hardwick, Massachusetts. Which is a little town in the middle and right smack dab. There's a rock in that town that marks the centermost point of Massachusetts.
And growing up, were you always interested in acting, modeling? What back then?
In high school, I wanted to be an MTV VJ. I always wanted to be a rock journalist. I always had an interest in music, and I did study journalism in college, but I got bored. I wanted to be in front of the camera. So when I moved out to LA, it was kind of a natural thing that I wound up in acting. So
before we get to you moving out to LA, let's stay in high school for a second. Because Sean, I don't know if you know this about Carrie, but Carrie, is it true that when you were in high school, you interviewed U2 for your school newspaper?
I did.
How the hell how does a high school student from Massachusetts pull that off?
Well, I was entertainment editor of my school newspaper, and we tried to do it, the normal way. Like we wrote letters to the band's management, and it was then called the Centrum in Worcester, Massachusetts, where the band was playing. Mm-hmm. We wrote all kinds of letters asking, if we could come interview the band because we were fans, and we got no response. And then my girlfriend Tanya and I were standing kind of in our seats that were kind of like side of the stage, and I smiled at the right guy. I just happened to smile at somebody, and he smiled back, and the lights came up, and I heard a slap on my thigh, and I looked down, and there was a backstage pass stuck to my leg, and I said, "Oh my God, can my friend have one too?" So he gave her one. And so that's how we got our interview. I went backstage afterwards and I talked to Bono. He talked to me about how important college radio is. And I talked to Adam Clayton, who was telling me about the limo accident, just a small accident, but on the way there, that the driver had got him in. And I talked to The Edge. The only one that wasn't there was the drummer. So it was, yeah. So I got my interview, and that's how I learned about feminine wiles. That's how I learned, I mean, I was so young. It was by accident. I learned that little trick of who to smile at, and that,
Yeah, I've tried that. I've tried that before.
But I did still stick to my original goal, and I did get my interview, and I do still have a copy of it.
Nice.
So after that, you wind up going to college. You realize, hey, journalism, being behind the scenes isn't for me. And you just kind of like, what, in your early 20s, you just decide to move out to LA from Massachusetts?
Well, you're making it more logical than it actually was. I would have been that.
That's the first time anybody's ever called Jeff logical, by the way, just so you know.
Yeah, it didn't happen exactly like that. I was in college, and I had gone on vacation to LA. I met some of my friends from Massachusetts during like a Christmas, New Year's in LA. So I got my first taste of LA, and then I couldn't focus on school anymore. So
what year is this about, Carrie?
That was 1989. Yeah.
Okay, because at that time, the Sunset Strip is still the Sunset Strip.
New Year's Eve that turned into 1989. January, that was so very early in 1989. So Christmas 1988 and New Year's 1999. So I went back to college that January. I just daydreamed about the Sunset Strip all day instead of focusing on school. And then I did something crazy, and I just packed my bags. I hid them behind my bed. And my stepmother one day said, "Where do you think you're going, Los Angeles?" And I said, "Yep." And I got in my car, and my dad said, "You'll be back in 2 weeks." And yeah, it's been over 30 years. And
you didn't have any jobs, anything, nothing lined up?
I had a job in Memphis at the Ramada Hotel. And I actually I obviously quit without giving them notice. I was so ballsy and I must have been a bit stupid, but I guess ignorance is bliss, because I applied at the Ramada West Hollywood, which was newly opening at the time. As soon as I had $200 in my Toyota Celica. I get here and I find out that they're hiring front desk people at the Ramada West Hollywood. So I apply and I give my reference for the manager in Memphis, who I was so naive. Like I told you, I can't believe I dared give him a reference, but even though he gave me a bad referral, they hired me anyway, probably because I was cute, So once again, this is the story of my life, So I got that job, and I think I just kind of landed on my feet. Acting and modeling didn't come until a little bit later. But that's,
Well, how did you get into acting and modeling? So now you're in LA, you're working the front desk at the Ramada. How do you, what's your first big break? What's your first time on a set like?
I was actually at a dentist office in Burbank in the waiting room, and a lady came up to me and she said, "Are you union or non-union?" And I said, non, I guess, because I was thinking like truck driver union or something. I didn't know what
like a Teamster? Yeah, you look like a Teamster.
Talking about. Right. I wasn't in any union. So I just said non, I guess. And she said, "How would you like to go on a cruise for a week? It's an NBC movie of the week. We're looking for, basically high-end background performers that would look good in a bikini. And would you mind auditioning, for the producer in a bikini?" And I said, "No, I wouldn't mind. Okay, I'll do it." And I got the job. So I got to go on a cruise for a week with then all the stars of the NBC shows that were popular at the time. And I got to be on a set. And that's when I started to think of acting as a real career, because where I grew up in Massachusetts, you don't do that. Like, you have to have a normal job, like be a teacher or
right.
a lawyer or a doctor, like nobody where I grew up thinks of having a career as an actress. So I learned from being on that set that it is a real career. And I got the bug. I wanted to do it. So yeah, I won't get too far ahead. I'll answer your questions as you.
Yeah, because then you wound up getting into, was it soap operas?
Oh my God, I have an audition for General Hospital that I have to do after we're done. I'm still at it after all these years. Believe me, I say to myself, like, why do you still do this? Like, do you know how many times I've auditioned for that show? How many times I've screen tested? I joke with them and say, you should invite me to your Christmas party from now on, because I still haven't gotten on it like all these years. But yes, back then my first acting job was Days of Our Lives. So it was Days of Our Lives back in, I think it was 1992. I booked a recurring role on Days of Our Lives. Yeah.
Wow.
But that wasn't my first job. I think my first job was Weird Science, the TV show. I booked the pilot episode of that show. So sometimes I can't remember what I do. I have to like look at my own resume at this point to like.
You've been in quite a bit of things. You were also in Rockstar with Blas, right?
Oh, mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. You were in that. And then somehow 7 years later, you become the June 1997 Playmate of the Month.
Rockstar was in 2000. We shot that. So I was Miss June 1997 before Rockstar. So
that's right. So how does that come about?
Oh, it's so weird. You're going to think I'm such a weirdo. It actually came about because I was doing this meditating called rebirthing, which is, back then it wasn't as well known. Now it's called connected breathing. And like every yoga class has, breathing. It's, like a bunch of different names. And now it's very common, the breath work, that's what they call it now. But it was called rebirthing back when I got into it. And it was in this rebirthing session, this deep meditation where I felt like I was connecting to my higher power. And I swear, like I just heard voices like my spirit guides telling me to do Playboy. I know that sounds bizarre, but that is what happened. And as soon as I drove away, I called Peggy, who used to be married to Dana Strum, and said, hey, do you think that I could be a playmate? And she said, sure. She said, let me refer you because I'll get $1,000 finder fee. So basically I started working out and eating fish and vegetables like every night, and a hard-boiled egg every morning. And 4 months later, I felt like I was ready to go audition for it. And I got in the very next issue. So
what's the audition process like for something like that?
Well, everything's different now, but back then they had what was called an open call day, like every other Thursday. But since Peggy sent my pictures in, I was at the top of the list, like they were expecting me. And I almost walked out because like the other girls that were sitting there in the waiting room looked like hookers. And I was like, I don't know if this is for me. But I had read this article about Jenny McCarthy and how she got Playmate of the Year, and that she went to her audition like in a little business suit, all professional. So that's how I looked that day. I copied what I read Jenny McCarthy did. So if it worked for her, I figured it worked for me. But all the other girls were dressed like in the middle of the daytime, like they work at a strip joint with clear plastic shoes and little rubber dresses. And, it was intimidating. I almost walked out, and then they called my name. And basically you just have to pose for, they tell you the positions and you're completely naked except for your shoes. And you do like their basic, poses they instruct you to do. It's all very professional, and at their Polaroids at the time. And, and then I got a call the next week from the editor, and she was excited. She wanted me to come in and screen. When you do the actual test, it's with the actual photographer, makeup artist, stylist that would actually do your real shoot if you make it. So those pictures, even though they were my test, made it. They're all over the world. They own you basically once you sign your life away when you do it. So anyway, I never left. They just said, "Would you just keep shooting?" So it takes a long time. Like it's our job to make things look easy, but the centerfold typically takes, just for that one photo, 5 days. And then your small camera, which is the small photos that are all around, the rest of the pictures in your issue. Takes another 3 weeks, and then you have to do your video. Back then, we each had our own video, and I think that was another week on top of that. So, but I really enjoyed all of it. They made me very comfortable, very professional. That felt like family. I had a great 20-year run, both professionally with Playboy and personally on the Playboy Mansion social side. I had a wonderful 20-year run with them, so no regrets at all.
How is the mansion? Is it like as glorious as everybody thinks it is?
Well, it was. It's not there anymore. But it's demolished. It's really sad. But it was glorious. It was my home away from home. So
does something like that pay really well? Is that enough to like set you up for a couple of months once you get that?
No, I think I made about $100,000 my first year with Playboy. So you're typically back then. And now it doesn't even, I have to stop talking about now. Also, I'll tell you what it was back then. I think when I did it, it was 25,000. Then it went up to 30,000, like right after I did it, which was the height of it. Then when, then it went down from there, it's not just, it's what you make of it. Like say I got that 25,000 for the Centerfold, but then they kept hiring me for other things. Like, I would do a calendar. I would do a Playmate Girls of something video. I would do, the Playboy catalog, tons of personal appearances all over the world. So it's not, it's like, does it pay? It's different for every girl. It's like, if you are good at it, you can, which I was, they base hiring a Playmate a lot, not just on your looks, but your ability to be personable, because you're a brand representative. Like you're not going to just be in the magazine. You're going to be traveling all over the world, representing the magazine, meeting people, posing, for pictures, representing the brand. So, believe me, there's a lot, I've seen a lot of girls, I think, that are way more beautiful than I am that got turned down. And I've asked the photographers there why, and they said because of their attitude. So
I've got a pretty decent attitude, and I got like a 54, like solid B. What should my rate be if I try and go into Playboy?
Well, sadly, there is no Playboy to go into. People always ask me like how I can get their daughters in these days, and I'm like, I wouldn't recommend it because there's really no Playboy anymore. Everything's gone.
It's all digital now, right?
I think they only have. There's no Miss of the Month anymore. It's only online, and there's like 4 Playmates a year, so there isn't really a Playmate anymore, in my opinion, because you're not a month anymore, and there's no personal appearances. I mean, when reality TV and Instagram models came in, then hiring Playmates to be at events kind of went out of style. Things changed. And, when the Playboy Mansion ended and Hugh Hefner died, it was just like the end of an era that was already, they were already struggling to keep it afloat. So all good things must come to an end.
Very true.
So let's switch gears a little bit here. You also dated Eric Carr from the drummer from Kiss. Were you always into rock? Were you always attracted to that type of guy? Like you into that whole Sunset scene?
Well, as soon as I found out about it, I was obsessed with it. But yeah, even before that, when I was never knew a guy with long hair, I knew I liked that. It was basically David Lee Roth did that to me. It was basically when I went to go see Van Halen in 1984, and David Lee Roth came out on stage, and I was like, wow, like it's like, I don't know if you've seen that meme of Olivia Newton-John, in the beginning of Grease when she's all innocent. And then, and then there's a meme like before Van Halen and after Van Halen. And then she's in her leather jacket, like all badass with the cigarette. Yeah, that's kind of what happened to me after my first Van Halen concert. So I would tell all my friends in Massachusetts, I want to meet a guy with long hair. I want to meet a guy with long, but we had none in my small town where I grew up. There weren't any. And so I knew I liked it before I even met it. But then I moved to Memphis, Tennessee, my senior year of high school, and there was plenty there in Memphis. There's a great music scene there. And, I met so many friends there, and so many bands with long hair. It's like rocker heaven there. And that's where I met Eric, was in Memphis, Tennessee during the Crazy Nights tour. And
you guys meet? Were you at the concert and again, someone gave you a backstage pass?
Yeah, kind of. He did, but he didn't know he gave it to me. It was actually the night of the concert. I was there with 3 girlfriends, and we went to the Peabody Hotel where.
Oh, I love that place.
Yeah, we knew where all the bands stayed. The opening bands always stayed at the Radisson next door, and the main band stayed at the Peabody. So we often went to the Peabody for drinks before a show, and Eric was on his way down the corridor out of the hotel, and Kathy, who was a friend of mine, but she was, I don't know, probably 20 years older than me. She already knew all the rock stars, and she had met Eric before. So she went up to him. He was rushing down the corridor to get out the door to the venue, and she just went up and was chatting with him and walked away with backstage passes and gave them to the rest of us. So I didn't meet Eric that night, oddly enough, and I had a date. I was dating this guy from Arkansas who met us at the show, and I actually don't even remember being backstage. I don't remember, so I didn't meet him that night anyway. But a couple nights later, my friends and I had gone back to the Peabody to go see Ron Wood from the Rolling Stones art exhibit that was going on there, and we were sitting in the lobby bar. And from the back of his head, I thought it was Paul Stanley, but we were confused because we kept track of all the bands. And we even saw them in Jackson, Mississippi a couple of nights before Memphis. So we knew that they should have been gone and on to the next city. But it turns out, well, I overheard, it turned out to be Eric and a road manager and another guy, a roadie. And I overheard them talking about getting a taxi to go see a local band play called the Willies at the Midway Cafe, another place I was very familiar with. So I just chimed in and I said, I have a car, I'll take you. And they said, sure. And that's how it.
Wow. So what were your, so you were with Eric for a while,
Yeah, and we kept in touch after that. It's a crazy story because I was actually telling my son this the other night because he's 19 now, so he can handle anything. But I was telling him about how crazy that night turned and how we hooked up and everything. And it should not have. I was only 18 and he was 37, and then it turned into a long, serious relationship until the day he died. So yeah, it's quite the story, but. Bittersweet. Sometimes, it's the best thing that happened to me, but it's also the worst thing at the same time. So anyway, I'm getting off the subject, but yeah, it's quite the story. And when I wanted to move to LA, he told me not to, because so Eric and I were in touch. And when I told him that I wanted to move to LA on the phone, he warned me what happens to nice girls when they move to LA. And tried to talk me out of it. But then he also told me that he was going to be in LA recording their next album, Hot in the Shade. And so my little brain went, aha, then I'm definitely going. So anyway, that's how we ended up getting serious, because we were finally both in the same place for a good amount of time. So that's he would come visit me at the Ramada, West Hollywood. And,
you were still working there. You were still working there.
Well, yeah. Well, Eric and I, as soon as I moved to LA, almost as soon as I moved to LA, he was here recording. So it was maybe I probably had a few weeks or before he was here too. I mean, we got together very quickly. And after that, I was working at Guitar Center for, checking people's receipts on the way out. He'd come and visit me there, and I'm still friends with everybody that works there. And yeah.
Are you still friends? Keep in touch with the guys from Kiss?
Oh, not really. No. I mean, I went to see a couple of the end of the road tour shows. Tommy Thayer invited me to a couple shows. And so I saw them in Vegas in 2019. I went to, I happened to be in Ireland. So I went to Scotland. And then I used to see Gene all the time because.
What's your impression of Gene?
Well, I think a lot of the same thing about Gene that everybody else thinks, but I like Gene a lot. I think that, the reason I like Gene is not, look, he cares about money a lot, he's opinionated, but he lets other people have their opinions too. Like he's not hypocritical. Like
did he ever hit on you?
No, not really. I say not really because before I met Eric, he flirted with me in that same night I told you about that Eric walked down the border and I didn't meet him. I did meet Gene that night, and he he wrote down I didn't really meet him. I think he just saw me standing there, and he wrote his room number on a little piece of paper and handed it to me, but I didn't call it or anything. But no, not since not since I've been Eric's girlfriend. I've known Gene now, I don't know, since I was 18, and he put me on the cover of his Tongue magazine. I would see him at the Playboy.
That's right.
All the time.
Magazine.
Yeah, he's come to several of my birthday parties. I mean, I've been to his house many times. He's had plenty of opportunity to hit on me. He never has. I might be the only girl that he's never hit on, but but no, he actually, I think he respects me, for being Eric's girlfriend, and he's always treated me with respect. So I appreciate that.
What about Paul? Are you friendly with Paul? Does he kind of keep your distance?
No,
you can't stand him?
No, I can't stand him, and I'll never go see Kiss again because of him.
He's a dick. I'll say it out loud. I met him. He was an asshole.
He's an asshole, and my reasoning for this is really nothing. I put my feelings aside a long time ago about the way they treated Eric when he was on his deathbed. I had to, because I couldn't live with that anger in my heart. I had to come to peace with it, just for my own mental well-being. I had to forgive and move on. And Gene made it easy for me because he interviewed me for Tongue magazine, and I told him straight out, I used to hate you. And he said, tell me all about it. I want to hear it. And I did. And he printed it in the magazine. So that's why I have respect for him, because he let me have my voice and speak, and he respected my feelings. And on the other hand, Paul has never been anything but standoffish and moody and strange. But I just went, okay, well, that's just how he is, it's just personality. Didn't really take it too personal. It was what I found out in 2019, right before I went to their show in Scotland. It's because of Paul's memoir that I can't stand him. I speak out against him whenever is appropriate. And I think everyone would agree with me that he took, and again, I didn't read his memoir, so I found out about this much later, and it still upsets me, but I was not a playmate when I was dating Eric, and he wrote in his memoir that Eric was dating some playmate, so he's using that to exploit me, and then he wrote awful things about Eric's wake and how bizarre his playmate acted at his wake, and something about me molesting his dead body. I mean, it's just unforgivable. It's like, do you not have enough money, enough fame? You have to take the most painful moment of my life and exploit it in your memoir, you asshole. So I don't think anyone would disagree with me that I have good reason to be upset with him, beyond the fact that he lies in the book and said that Eric was on drugs and calls him a putz and everything else, because Eric never did a drug in his life. And one time he accidentally ate a space cake in Amsterdam, but he was very anti-drug. So that was a complete lie. And, I just think he's a really shitty person for doing that. And why do you even have to call Eric a putz? I mean, so it's just, so whatever I'm saying about him. He brought on himself. I didn't say anything in my memoir, about him. I chose not to because it's not a book. It's not really a book about Kiss. It's not about Paul, and it's not his stage. But when I do interviews, I will speak my mind, and I have not found one person that would disagree with me. That was just it was just a really low thing to do. He also in his book talks about how everyone's treated him and Gene so shitty at the wake and at the funeral, and they ignored them. And it's like, can you just get off of your own fucking high horse for a minute, and just have some respect for other people? So it was just, no, the funeral and the wake was not about you, Paul. It wasn't your stage. It was about Eric. Yes, and excuse everybody for not clapping when you walked in the door, but it was a funeral, So he's just an ass, period.
The experience that I had with him, I met both of them. And I will say Gene is a very charming, personable person. He was very nice to me, very cool. When I met Paul, it was a little different situation. He was doing like an art exhibit at a gallery, and he flat out refused to meet any people there unless they purchased a piece of art. And
a friend of mine sent me a video of his, I guess he had a estate sale not too long ago. And my friend sent me a video that somebody snuck from inside. And I just couldn't believe that he was like selling pots and pans and dishes. It's like, can't you donate them to a charity or something? Like, do you not have enough money yet?
I know. Yeah. And I'll never forget, there was a little kid there. He was like 10 years old. And he had a Paul Stanley model guitar. And I've played guitar for 30 years. So I know what this kid was going through. It was like his hero. The mother flew him and her up from New Orleans to New Jersey to meet him. And they were trying to try and push the kid in no matter what. Like if he's, wanted to buy a piece of art. And they go, well, it's a 10-year-old kid. And he was like, well, the mother has money to buy the piece of art. And the kid was like crying. And I'll never forget. It was like right before like Facebook really blew up and stuff. So I blogged for the first time on MySpace.
To buy the art. Yeah, that's just.
And it was like there were 5x7 pieces of like the 4 solo albums, and he was charging $2,200 a piece for them. It was absolutely insane. But I'll tell you, the line was up
to me though is that because I kind of like inherited, whether I like it or not, like Eric's fans, and I've become like this part of like the Kiss family. And I thought that when my memoir came out, and I'm very outspoken about, as you can see, I thought that I would get haters. Like I thought the Kiss fans would hate me, and instead they all loved me. And they said that 3/4 of the fun of being a Kiss fan is making fun of Paul and Gene.
True.
So I'm like, oh, wow, I didn't even know that. But what gets me is no matter what, they'll still buy anything that they'll buy anything that.
Oh yeah, big time.
Anyway, though.
But look how shitty Paul treated Ace and Peter, but particularly Ace, after he's been clean for the last like 17 years and still refers to him as an alcoholic and a drug addict.
Well, I've heard, I shouldn't say things that I don't know for a fact are true, but I've heard that Paul had substance issues privately, not more like steroids and stuff. I don't know if it's true, but somebody in the Kiss camp told me that when they brought up the drug thing. And I wouldn't doubt it because he's so vain, but honestly, I don't know for sure anything, but I don't really feel bad spreading rumors about him, considering he put it in print in his book that Eric did drugs when he never did. It's just such a lie. Oh, and I never molested his dead body in his coffin either, in case you're wondering. And I never took his drumsticks out of his hand. I never did anything that he said I did. And I was so upset when I heard that because he's a huge star. Like so many people are reading this in the book, and then and little old me, like he picks on me, and so I immediately texted Bruce, his ex-wife, Loretta. I'm like, did I do that? They're all like, no, of course you didn't do that. It's a lie. So I don't know how he comes up with these things, but which just wasn't true and very upsetting.
Anyway. Well, your book did very well too. So
it's still doing well, but I'm never going to be on Paul Stanley's level. Like you can't compare. I'll never get.
I think you're probably more candid than Paul Stanley was in his book. I read Paul's
honest,
book.
But I often wonder if he wrote it himself or did somebody else write it and he didn't proofread it, because I'm like, I mean, in any case, I'll never get an apology, but I certainly am due one.
So, do you ever think like when Paul's time finally comes and he passes, like it's going to come out that he's been in the closet for the last 70 years?
Yeah, I've heard the gay rumors. I don't know what's true about that. I mean, I've heard strong rumors about that, but I've also never seen it with my own eyes. I mean, they used to call him Phyllis on the road. The road crew did, but that's because he was moody. It was like he had PMS, so they called him Phyllis. He is very effeminate, but I honestly I don't know about that. But who knows? But he should. You'd think that like seeing all these other rock stars passing away, you'd think you'd take a good look at yourself in the mirror and start being like, a little nicer to people. I don't know. I don't follow him on social media or anything, but I often people retweet things, tell me things that, and I'm like, oh God, yeah, cringeworthy.
Let's bring up a couple of other rock stars. Just tell me what your impressions of them are. If you've met them at any point. Vince Neil, back in the day. Vince Neil?
I know a lot of his ex-wives. I didn't know him very well. I've only met him briefly a couple of times. He was very nice, but his ex-wives tell me differently. That's all.
Told you differently about him.
Well, yeah, I mean, but I wasn't married to him. I just, as an acquaintance that had met him, he was nice. I mean, my friend Heidi, she was a playmate too. She was with him for 9 years, and then married to him for 1 year. At the time, we were doing Rockstar, and that's during the time that he didn't have any money, and she had to support him all those years. And the wife before that, Charisse, oh my God, he's been married like 6 times. No, I don't have any personal experience with him at all. It's just knew his ex-wives.
What about Slash? Ever meet Slash?
Yeah. I've met Slash many times. I briefly dated his bass player, Todd Kearns, about a decade ago. Mm-hmm. Todd's a great guy. Still friends. He's a sweetheart. So when I met Todd when he was singing for Bruce Kulick's solo show at the Cat Club. Bruce invited me, and I hung out with Todd for a couple of months right when he got into Slash's band. So I got to be around Slash quite a bit, and he was extremely cool. Extremely cool.
Who else is cool is Bruce Kulick, who was a former guest. He was on this show.
Bruce is like, I call him Uncle Bruce. Now everyone calls him Uncle Bruce. I've been calling him that like for 30 years. But yeah, Bruce is like family to me, like I'm still best friends with his ex-wife, like we all stayed very close.
We had Bruce and Lisa on here, and they were tremendous. They're really like, I would say, a class act. He really is.
They're a great couple. They really are. I'm so glad Bruce found somebody that makes him so happy.
Okay, last name I want to bring up to you, Bret Michaels. Ever?
Yeah, I have a funny Bret story. It's in my book. So, but yeah, Bret used to have a crush on me back when I was a new playmate, and I got a call from the PR department. at Playboy one day saying that Bret Michaels called, and he said he met me the night before and lost my number. So he wanted my number. And I said, I was home last night. I didn't even go
That's the oldest trick in the book, Carrie.
Yeah, I'm like, and I said, maybe it was another Carrie, the Carrie West call, a Carrie, there's a couple, Carrie Kendall, there's a couple different Carrie playmates. So I said, maybe it was one of them. And she said, no, he definitely said Carrie Stevens. So I just laughed it off. And then it turned out we had the same hairstylist. So she told him that she did my hair, and then he would give my hairstylist like signed CDs and to give me, and then I'd sign like a picture and give it to her to give back to him. So, like it was this cat and mouse thing. And then took a long time to get me to go out for a drink with him. But it's the funniest story because I finally go out for a drink with him. We went down to Castle Vega. It was like late after 5 o'clock. It was like an early quick kind of drink. I remember because it was still daylight out. And we're having margaritas, and some girl like just comes up and starts screaming at him, like just screaming at him like a lunatic. So I'm like, I'm gonna go to the bathroom. And so I go to the bathroom. I didn't know why he was getting screamed at, but I come back and he's like, we've got to go. Like right now, I'll bring you home. So I'm like, okay. So we go in my house and we start like making out, and like he pushes me onto my bed and he's kissing me. And then all of a sudden his phone goes off and he takes the call and like ran out. And then I found out what happened later is that his girlfriend was in labor. So that's why the girl the girl we were drinks came up screaming at him because while his girlfriend was in labor, he was on a date. And so she was screaming at him. And then I guess I don't know what was said on the phone obviously I found out later from the hairdresser that that's why he had to run out. And then, he never asked me out again or anything. I went to a show with the hairdresser many years later, like maybe a decade ago. And I went on the bus and said hello. And we didn't even mention that ever happened, but I don't think he'd mind me telling the story because, it was so long ago. And, his kids are grown. He's not with the same woman anymore. And with him doing Rock of Love and all the rumors surrounding that, and that he basically slept with everyone on the whole show, I think like that's his thing. And I think it's just like, it's his rock star thing. So I don't mean to tell this story in any way to insult him. I just think it's hilarious actually. And, whatever, none of my business, but they worked it out, I guess, whatever. I don't know what was going on in his relationship. So, but anyway.
There was another, let's get off of rock stars for a second. And when you were in college or something, or in your professional life, did you meet or interview Donald Trump?
No, I never. No, I met him several times, but I never interviewed him for anything. I met him. I have like 4 different times I met him, but there's a few times. But I think, the first time was at a charity golf tournament. But I was there with my boyfriend sitting at the same table. That was, the year before he met Stormy Daniels there, I think. And then that was the second time, because the first time I met him backstage, I was doing a fashion show in New York City for Betsy Johnson, and he was in the audience. And we drove with him in his limo with Melania. They weren't married yet, to the after party, and they drove us back, and he was winking like this at me the whole time. His big hairy eyebrows. Yeah.
Does he have like a charm or like a magnetism or a charisma?
In my opinion, I wasn't attracted to him. I thought it was a little creepy and weird. I was actually naked. I was backstage changing because you have to change really quick for those fashion shows. And I felt someone staring at me, and I looked, and he was winking at me like that. And then a girlfriend of mine that was also in the show used to be roommates with Melania in Paris when they were modeling together. So that's how we got invited to go with them in their limo to the after party. And then he was doing the same winking thing at me there. But no, I didn't find it charming. I didn't find him attractive. I had no interest in him.
If you did, you could have been a former first lady, Carrie.
Well, yeah, that's okay. That's all right. I don't know. I don't think I'd want to trade places. That couldn't have been an easy job.
That's a tough job. I will give you that.
I got a tough question for you now. You ready? What do you like better, Carrie? LA or New York?
The weather or the people?
Go people.
I like the East Coast people because I'm from Massachusetts, and I like, I just tend to like people who just say it like it is, and I find that my truest friends also end up being from the East Coast, or I'm still friends with them from growing up together. You guys are straight shooters, and I like that. So, I mean, I'm not just saying most people from LA they're all transplants anyway. But yeah, I miss it a lot. I do. But I've been considering making a major change. I was even thinking of moving back to the East Coast, but with this world upside down the way it is, I've been thinking maybe I ought to just wait till things settle down to make any big decisions.
Yeah. So what are you up to these days? So you said early on, I said you could have been in the fudge business. That was for
I used to be, but I had to look. My father's a scientist, and he wanted me to be in business with him. And his company is very anti-sugar. So, and he it's called Nutrigenome, and he patented a molecular hydrogen that's sustainable, and it's applicable to many products, but the one in particular, that I'm handling for him is called Skinny Snacks, and my website is stayyoungandskinny.com, or also skinnysnacks.net. So, being that is weight loss and anti-aging, and we advise people not to eat sugar, I can't very well have my fudge business too. So, plus I just don't have time in my life to do everything that I do anyway. So something had to give. And the fudge only really did well over the holidays anyway. So it wasn't like a huge loss to give it up. It was good. It was really good fudge, but I can't do everything, like I said. So
what are you up to now? What are you doing these days?
Well,
acting, modeling.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. I booked 2 movies during this pandemic that just never happened. Like they kept getting postponed, and now I'm at the point where I'm going, I don't know if they're ever going to happen. Because of the requirements in the industry now, the budget just doesn't allow for everyone on set to be COVID tested, every day, and there's just the only things in production are basically, the extremely high budget productions, and so it's been limiting the amount of work for people. So it's kind of hitting our industry, but I don't know. I have that soap opera audition this week, so things are picking up, and I'll this week we'll see where it's going to go. I'm doing some DJing, but we'll see where that goes later this week. But starting to do that, and that's a new adventure, being on the radio, because I'm kind of excited about it because I don't have to look good anymore. Like I can just I can be old and fat, and it doesn't matter. I'd love to have a career in radio.
Oh, I know. You're such a horrible, disgusting fat pig, Carrie. It's really, it's I don't know why you'd ever want to be on camera. Good Lord.
Not really. You look great. You sound great. You have a completely interesting story. I mean, you are really a very interesting person. So the name of our show is called Who's Your Band? Who do you listen to, Carrie? What's your music?
I knew you were going to ask me that. Well, my favorite band, no secret, is Van Halen, classic Van Halen, David Lee Roth Van Halen. I never get sick of it. I can listen to it like a lullaby and fall asleep. To Running with the Devil. I'm weird that way. That's my favorite, but I love Led Zeppelin. I love Elvis, Patsy Cline. I like some country, I like Jake Owen. I like bluesy music. But I'm more of like, my tastes run heavier, like probably Metallica, even Tool. I'm just kind of a rocker chick, I guess. Like, I love finding out about new bands I've never heard of. That's fun. That's my new little hobby lately. Like I like to ask other people like who I should listen to. And I've been finding out about the Nashville Pussies, which is a strange name. So I had to look
band.
up. Yeah, they're pretty cool. And another one I discovered recently, I had no idea who they were, but I think the song I heard was Going Everywhere or something. I'm Going Everywhere. It was, and I thought, wow, this is great. I got to find out who this is. And then it was LA Rats, which is a super group with Nikki Sixx and John Five and a bunch of other guys.
And Rob Zombie, yeah.
Yeah. So I love that heavy bass sound and that alter bridge. And I loved all Slash's solo albums when he had a different guest on vocals. So yeah, my taste in music is typically just rock, just classic rock. And I love to ask my son who the newer bands are that I need to know about. So like Dirty Honey, everybody's talking about Dirty Honey.
Yeah, you love Dirty Honey, Sean.
I do. I prefer them over Greta Van Fleet any day of the week.
So I'm a big Greta Van Fleet fan.
I make a suggestion. I would suggest you listen to Mammoth.
Oh yeah.
I'm just going to ask you that. Have you checked them out yet, Carrie?
Yeah, they're great. So, I mean, I don't honestly, I'm trying to think of, I'm just in general, like if it rocks, I like it. Like there's not really anything I don't like except really pop music or rap music. And it's a rare time that there's like a song that everyone else likes that I like. Like I cannot stand walking into a restaurant or a store if they're blasting like some minute techno pop rap something. Like I turn around and walk out. I can't stand it.
Gotcha. Sean, I'm going to let you have like the last questions here. Sean always ends up, he always has a particular question he likes to ask and end with our guests. So go ahead, Sean, I'm going to throw it your way.
So if you can make and usually I ask this to musicians, but I will ask you, if you can make your own supergroup, one guitar player, one bass player, one drummer, one singer, who is it going to be?
Living or dead?
Living or dead? Living or dead is fine.
Living?
Everybody asks that question.
Living or dead doesn't matter.
That question. Living or dead doesn't make a difference.
My answers are so obvious, though. I'd put Eric Carr on drums. I'd put David Lee Roth on vocals. I'd put Eddie Van Halen on guitar. And let's see, on bass, I'd put Billy Sheehan.
Great.
Billy Sheehan, a former guest. Love it.
That's a great band. I will tell you that. That's one of the better bands that we've gone so far on that question. So I appreciate that.
Oh, good. Because I thought my answers were going to be obvious.
No, it was a good one. That was actually a really good one. Because normally we get the musicians, they're like, oh, I love my band so much. I couldn't live without them. They're the only
because they have to be politically correct and say their own band.
Exactly.
I don't care who I piss off.
Exactly.
Carrie, we really appreciate you spending an hour with us and giving us your time. You're great. And how could our fans, how could our people find you and follow you?
Carrie Stevens, XO. I know that's cheesy, but my name was already taken. So it was actually Playboy's idea to put the X and the O. So it's just there. So I'm Carrie Stevens, XO, at Instagram and at Twitter, and on Facebook, I'm just Carrie Stevens. There's probably 100 of us, but I'm probably the one with the most followers. So there's a fly fishing thing, Carrie Stevens. If you Google Carrie Stevens, a bunch of fly fishing stuff comes up, and a bunch of rumors about me that aren't true. So don't listen to them. So, and of course, carriestevens.com.
Well, we're big fans of you, Carrie Stevens. And we really appreciate you taking the time out. Anything else, Sean?
No, follow her on social media. I mean, we got a lot of followers, so let's get her numbers going. You know, let's pump them up. And thank you for a great episode. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was fun.
All right. Bye, guys. We'll see you next week on Who's Your Band. Take care, everybody. Right. Thanks, Carrie.
You're welcome. Anytime.